I'm David Stearns, and welcome to today's Recruiter Intel Spotlight. Today, I'm very pleased to have the privilege to speak with Carl White, who's a senior executive partner with Lucas Group, focused on accounting and financial recruiting. Welcome, Carl.
Thanks, David. Glad to be here.
So before we jump into today's topic, would you just tell everybody a little bit about your background?
Well, started off my career as a naval officer. Did that for about 8 years. And actually, Lucas Group placed me when I was a Navy lieutenant stationed at the Pentagon. They placed me with GE. That's one of our divisions, one of our more popular divisions, our military group that places transitioning military officers and senior enlisted personnel into companies, all types of opportunities across the country. And I was fortunate enough to be placed with GE. And back then, GE was, that was a great company to go to, and very popular with naval officers, military officers. And I was fortunate enough to get a great role with them. And the rest is history. Went on to some other operations roles, went into commercial real estate for a bit, and thought about what I really enjoyed, realized that recruiting was it. Actually called my recruiter who placed me at GE. He was still at Lucas Group, and told him I was interested in going into executive search. And he said, why not join us? And here I am. That was in 2001. 20 years later, I'm still here having fun.
So I've talked to a lot of people throughout my career who are in the staffing and recruiting industries. You may be one of the first people I've ever met who said, I went into this field because I really wanted to be a recruiter. Everyone was like, it just happened by accident, by chance. That's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of times folks fall into it. That's true.
Today, we're going to talk about diversity and inclusion. And we had a nice conversation last week talking a little bit about how companies are striving to build more diverse leadership. And then you brought up a topic I like, which is really developing talent at all levels for diversity and inclusion. So I know in your 20 years of experience, you've had tons of opportunity to learn more about these subjects. And to kick things off today, when it comes to this topic of diversity and inclusion, which obviously became a much bigger issue in 2020, what are employers looking for and how has it changed in the past year?
Well, I think the way it's changed, obviously the events of 2020, the social unrest really made some people pay attention. Folks that traditionally don't get involved in these type of issues, as you could see, with the types of kids that were involved, and then going into the corporations, sports teams, all types of people involved in equality and wanting things to be better. And I think that type of focus has changed the way recruiting has been. I think a lot of times over the years, companies took it as a task because they had to get something done. They wanted to get a certain amount, whether you're a government contractor, and we need to get X amount of diversity in order to be a government contractor, whatever the case may be. Now I think people actually, and want to get folks in who can truly make a difference. They want to do it the right way. And this didn't just start this year. I'd say over the last 10 years, I've seen this trend where companies really want to bring candidates in for them to be successful. And as you and I discussed last week, diversity and inclusion, when it comes to that, diversity is, inviting folks to the dance, but inclusion is asking them to dance. And in my mind, when you ask them to dance, it's about, those folks being successful within the company, truly not just being there for headcount and the company saying we have these people, but actually being a part of that company's success, feeling like they are really contributing to the bottom line. And that's the most important thing. Diversity inclusion is not a pie in the sky concept. It contributes to the company's bottom line, period.
That's right. When you gave the analogy, I couldn't get this vision out of my mind of like the high school dance with the boys on the girls on the other. And then finally you learn it's not just about being there, it's about engaging with one another. It really makes for a great night out. And I think businesses, you're right, our corporations are learning the same thing. When you learn to draw from other people's experiences, you get a wide breadth of input to make decisions, you become a much better business, more agile.
Absolutely.
Adapt, you make better decisions. So I know you've had 20 years of watching corporate America do this. You sure have tons of war stories you could share with us, but what has corporate America gotten right and gotten wrong when it comes to D&I?
Well, I think what they've gotten right over the years is, senior level buy-in. when you have senior level, C-level buy-in, that really makes the difference. And some companies do that better than others. But those companies do get that done. When a CEO or a chief operating officer or chairman says, this is the way we want to go, it's the right thing to do. And candidates know that that senior level buy-in is there. It gives confidence to the recruiters, it gives confidence to the corporate leaders, and it gives confidence to those diverse candidates that are being recruited. And if you can get that CEO or that senior VP in the interview tree when that candidate's being recruited, that means a lot. That candidate knows that this is serious. So, I would say, what I've seen, the main thing I've seen is when companies have that senior level, C-level buy-in, that truly makes the difference.
So let's talk about the other side. What are some of the things that you would say, I asked the question, what do they get wrong, but maybe the companies should be doing better?
Yeah, I think when we talked about it at the beginning, when companies feel like it's a corporate task where we have to get these many, or I have to hire this person because my boss told me I had to hire them. But when we go back to that senior level buy-in, and that's passed down through management, and management buys in and owns the process of diversity recruiting, and that manager who's recruiting truly, if it's not a senior level position, if that director feels that this is truly the right thing to do, to have a diverse workforce, it it improves diversity of thought, improves ideas, improves how we can go to market. So when director level, manager level folks believe that, coming down from C-level, that makes a big difference. When you don't get that and folks are doing it because I've been told to do this, that's when I see problems. That's when I see candidates not being onboarded correctly, not really being integrated into the company the way they could. And I've seen some bad things happen when folks are brought in like that.
You started to talk some about the values of being a more inclusive organization. What's the value of doing that? Why should every company in America wake up and say this has to be a part of our hiring?
Because I believe that it's America. It's America, period. And when you look at America, and it's the world, if you look at Europe, if you look at other areas, the bottom line is diversity really brings in. When we say diversity, it doesn't have to be just racial diversity, gender diversity, diversity of sexual preference, whatever the case may be. You bring in different folks that have different perspective. They geographic diversity, educational diversity. Some companies have all Ivy League folks, and it doesn't hurt to have a few state school folks in there. So when you bring in, yeah, absolutely. So, some companies, I used to, specialize in placing military candidates. You have some companies, they love military candidates so much, everybody there has a military background. So you start to get groupthink. And that's what you're trying to fight against, that groupthink syndrome, where, everybody's looking at problems, analyzing problems the same way. The world is so complex. The more folks you can bring in from different perspectives, the better you can attack business problems, because those folks bring a different attitude, different background, different set of data, a lot of times to these problems, which makes them easier to solve. And again, the better you can solve problems in the business, the more money you can make, the more profitable you are. And like we said at the beginning, diversity and inclusion is not just about feeling good, it's about the bottom line.
So I imagine that truly getting to the point where organizations, it's not a box to check, but it's a philosophy, it's part of the culture that we live. There's got to be some challenges that organizations face. So what are the big challenges companies face to making D&I successful?
Yeah, it depends on, sometimes it can be quite easy. You just have to look and say that this is a priority. And, you have folks like me out here that specialize in this that can deliver those candidates. In some areas, especially, you see a lot of STEM education programs coming up in schools because that is an issue. Having diverse candidates, especially people of color that come up and have STEM degrees, STEM backgrounds, so that science, technology, engineering, background is important to, having, foundations in certain companies. And when you don't have as many diverse candidates going into those STEM degrees, you don't get the output of graduates, and then you don't have as many candidates to recruit from. It's a narrower field. They're out there, and you can get them, but that is a challenge in more technical areas, in high finance areas like private equity, venture capital. Those tend to be more challenging as well. But those candidates are out there. Sometimes you may have to be a little bit creative. But like I tell my candidates, my clients, you don't compromise on the level of talent. You may have a wish list, and that list may not have all the things on it, but you may compromise on that a bit when you do diversity recruiting. But as far as the level of talent that candidate brings to the table, I used to say best athlete. You don't compromise on that. So you can get bright, talented, aggressive, career-oriented candidates that great leadership skills and have the raw ability to do the job that we're talking about. They may not have one specific skill that's a nice to have. And so that's another piece, is working with clients and figuring out what is truly required for this role versus what you're listing as a nice to have, based on your experience. And once you get to what's truly required for the role, then we can recruit on that and bring those types of candidates to the table.
Oh, that's great. And again, John, you're doing a great job making pictures pop up in my mind, because I'm picturing, like, a lot of times the client, the employer, the corporate America is they're drawing a box, and they have this picture of the ideal candidate in the box. And what you're saying is it's not a box, it's a bar. But it may not be the box you thought it was in. And the best candidate is probably, especially if you want more diverse talent pool, is going to be outside that box that you had in your mind.
Right. And that's my job as a consultant, to work with clients and help them understand what that bar truly is, and then to go out and find candidates that are over that bar. So again, it's not about it's not about just having a wish list. It's about what are the true skills required. And you may say, I want an electrical engineering degree for a position, and a candidate may have a degree in physics. And if the candidate has a degree in physics, that candidate many times can still do what that electrical engineer does in some roles. So just what exactly do you need? Where does that come from? And again, I told you I started off recruiting military candidates. A lot of times the candidate may have a degree in business, but by the time they finish 5 years of being a naval officer, they've been a chief engineer. Yeah. They've managed technical systems. So the things you want in a degree, being able to manage technical systems and processes, that business manager that has 5 years as a naval officer may have the skills that you require. And it may, even though they don't have an engineering degree. So it's things like that, that we work with clients with, just to get them to open their perspective moving forward.
Awesome. So one final question. Now I'm thinking about this from the other way. We talked all about it from the hiring manager side, but what about the candidates? I'm assuming you've got candidates who are going potentially into organizations where maybe diversity and inclusion wasn't a priority in the past, or maybe that they're not comfortable for some reason or other. You got to get the people to want to apply.
Well, with that, I think the main thing, David, is integrity and honesty. When you're recruiting that candidate, if you truly are honest with that candidate and tell that candidate what the challenges are, what the problems are in the company, instead of trying to paint a rosy picture, candidates pick up on that. And candidates are attracted to companies that are honest with them. And so if you establish that, and like we said before, when you have companies that have that C-level buy-in, so the candidates know that this is truly important to the company. And then when that buy-in is passed down and that ownership is with, especially again with mid-level management, entry-level management roles, when that manager, that director truly believes the same thing that that chief executive officer believes, as far as diversity being not just something to do, but truly good for the company, truly good for the company's bottom line. When those people feel that, when they're recruiting those candidates and interviewing those candidates, that's important. And sometimes you may be recruiting candidates to areas that may not have truly diverse populations. And if you're honest about that, hey, this is the situation here. Here's where, this is, our city has this type of population, this type of demographics, but, we have, these types of groups, and, you help a candidate understand the environment that they're coming into. So when they go in, they're clear, and some places may not be for all people, but usually we're able to find candidates that, are attracted to certain types of areas, whether that's Midwest, upper Midwest, South, East Coast, Northeast, whatever, West Coast, whatever the case may be, Pacific Northwest. So we're able to find candidates that are able to, that like certain areas, and then some will surprise you in the types of areas that they like.
Can you do Buffalo in the winter?
Absolutely. I've worked on that myself.
All right, Kyle. Well, this is great information. Thank you very much. When people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to connect with Carl White?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect there. My email address is cwhite@lucasgroup.com. Again, cwhite@lucasgroup.com. So feel free to email me. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. I always check that, and happy to engage with candidates, with clients, or people just curious about our recruiting process. Whether you want to learn about accounting and finance, executive search, what I specialize in, or about the company with a whole, since I've been there for 20 years, I can tend to talk intelligently about all of our divisions. So happy to help in any way.
Awesome, Carl. Thank you so much. Carl White from Lucas Group, Senior Executive Partner. Please reach out, and thank you for being part of today's Recruiter Intel Spotlight. Take care, Carl.
David, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and looking forward to doing exactly what we talk about in the workplace. Placing great candidates with great companies.
Fantastic. Take care, everyone.